Welcome to the Unlock Your Culture webcast, a monthly discussion about preserving traditional fire service culture in the modern setting. With your hosts, Sean Duffy, Pablo Jenner, John Hayowick, and Mark Alone. We hope you enjoy the show.
Got it.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. Episode number 17 of the Unlock Your Culture webcast. As always, I am Mark Alone, and we have got the full cast of derelicts here today. We've got John, Sean, and Pablo on me. So obviously going to be a great conversation. Our topic for tonight is going to be managing the seasons of your career. We've got quite a decent showing in the house of live audience members, so hopefully we'll have a bunch of feedback and we'll dive deep into this thing. So we'll start things off with, I'm going to start with Pablo. We haven't seen him in the flesh in a few months. Living that dad life, bro. What's good?
Yeah, man. Talking about seasons and stuff. I hit my season. My little boy was born, and I shut down quite a bit out there. Just I still did a few things here and there, but I shut down quite a bit. My everything. Before I continue, my disclaimer is he's fine right now. Everything ended up being good, but he was born as a high risk child because he had some pulmonary issues. So we were dealing with that with the wife being high risk, with him being high risk, and then after he was born, he needed to have lung surgery. So obviously, that he's 10 months old right today, or not today, but he's 10 month old right now. So he had his surgery when he was 6 months old. So that was tough as far as like not only the whole pregnancy, but then the first few months, et cetera, et cetera. So my season hit. My season hit where like I still obviously went to work and I performed the job at what I consider is a high level. I still treat everybody that I meet, all of my patients, all of the civilians, everything. Whether it be a fire or medical call, I still treat them with the utmost respect and do the job that I'm called upon to do, that I love so much. But for a little bit there, the job was just that, a job. I was not giving it what I had in the prior, due to just focusing on the family life a little bit. But as of right now, man, he's beautiful. He's beautiful. It's been 4 months past surgery. He healed perfectly fine. My wife is perfectly fine. And fuck, man, life's good, bro. Can't complain. I mean, can't. I'm blessed, bro.
I think you'll find out too, like the rest of us when we had kids, man, like it almost ups your game at work because now you have like a whole different subset of individuals that once you didn't really know how to care for, where it's just kind of like, oh, I'm in dad mode now. I got this, right?
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, you ain't kidding. I've ran a couple pediatric calls, nothing serious yet. Thank God, man. That's not something I ever want to run. But I ran a couple pediatric calls in the last couple of months, and I'm just like, I got it. I can talk to this little fucker right here. I'm good, so.
I love it. All right, man. Well, we're glad to have you back. Sean, what's good up in Michigan? Is it snowing yet?
Oh, thank God, man. Although I still do feel like I live in Alaska because it's daylight until like 10 o'clock. Right, John?
Dude, that's one of the craziest things going on out in Michigan. I was like 10:30. I'm like, I got to go to bed. What time is this? And it's like 8 o'clock light out. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's early light too.
And it's Eastern time zone. I don't understand that either.
It's crazy. But no, we just wrapped up the Great Lakes Hot Conference up here, which was awesome. This state is kind of weird with firefighter training, which is kind of ironic because there's a lot of hard chargers, right? There's a lot of good firemen here that want that training, but for whatever reason, it's just not being offered. So for the first time, like ever, there was a fire conference for the firefighters in the state. We had guys from Texas and Canada and just all over the place, man. It was awesome. I think we had like 57 students total over 3 days, and you just couldn't get enough. Like, the motivation from those guys and girls that came out was it was impressive. And, it just goes to show you that no matter what you think, there's still a lot of work to be done. we get accustomed to our own little circles and we think everything's like that, and that's just not the truth. So having the opportunity to be in a new area, to one, learn how to fight fire over again, essentially, and two, do it with a new group of people who are just as fired up as you. That's priceless.
Very good, bro. Very good. I'm glad it went well. I know you guys were psyched for that, put a lot of effort into it. So hopefully it's the first of many up there, right? And a whole different line of training for the area. Love to hear it. So, John, I know you were out there and finally adjusted to that retirement life, man. What you got?
Listen, I'm busier than anything else. I didn't understand. I've talked to guys like Michael Laura and a couple of the retired guys from my department. And they're like, listen, you're just going to get busier. You're not going to realize how you did things when you were working. And I think I realized that I probably put a lot of things on the back burner at my house that I should have been taking care of. So I've been sort of catching up on that stuff. But I was blessed to have the opportunity to come out and help Sean. And you had some headliners out there. You had Kyle Romigas, you had Steve Robertson, you had Todd Edwards, you had our own in-house Sean Duffy, and you had amazing guys there. And it was a good time to get out there. It's fun. It's fun to teach. It's fun to make something happen and get it going. But even in retirement, I'm still doing and learning. I was helping Sean out with drags and carries, and I'm learning stuff that Sean's doing. I'm like, all right, that works. That's cool. I never did that before. That's a different way of doing it. And you're always going to be learning. You got to be a student of the craft.
Very good, man. Very good. So I think the one ground rule I'm going to have to set tonight, we do have quite a few people here, is using that mute button just so we know who's trying to talk. It's kind of like the best way. I really love when the people that get on this live try to interact too. So if you want to say something in a moment instead of listen to us run our yaps here for an hour or two, just put your hand up on the chat thing and I'll unmute you, and we can definitely get some input from people other than the four of us. So let's get on to the topic, man. Like, we came up with this topic. I think it's pretty cool. It's about the seasons of your career. I don't know if this is the individual that came up with this concept, but Ben Martin from Embrace Your Resistance is the first person I ever heard it from. We were having a chat on the phone one day about some things going on in my career, and he's like, bro, you just got to understand that you're going to have seasons, right? Like, things change, you change. Like, you can't be fired up all day, every day. And that's the view we put out a lot of times. That's kind of the selling point that everybody wants you to believe. But if you think that's what's happening, man, like, the best of the best come in and have a shit day sometimes, right? Everybody's got home. Everybody's got a body that's beat up, right? Or drank too much on the weekend, or didn't have a good meal, or you ran 30 calls last shift and you never recovered. So I think kind of what gets us the most is there is that image out there that people put, and we base our careers and our departments off this snapshot that people put on social media, or the stories they tell at a conference, or the way they work when they're training on their thing that they really like to train on. But you don't see that full thing of, their full skill set, their full career. You're not with them every tour. And so to me, that's kind of where those ebbs and flows come from, is you come into work, and it's about what you do on the days where you're not there, right, in those lows. And that's where a lot of all these people you see out there that are doing this stuff, that's how they got their start. It wasn't at the high point of their career. It was at the low, right? So, what do you guys think? Is that accurate? Is that your experience? What do you think? What do you feel?
So I think there's seasons. You're right about seasons in the career, but I think there's just seasons throughout the year of having your highs and your lows. And that's the way I read into it tonight. Like, there's some days that you're motivated and you're focused, you're on point. I'm going to bang this out. I got this, from an instructor standpoint, whether you're doing content or creating a class or writing something. And there's other times that you're like, I'm struggling to get like 3 words on the paper, and I just can't function with that. And I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't feel like doing this. I'm like, is this worth what I'm doing? And then you got to take that step back and reset. And a lot of times the recalibration or the regeneration happens after hanging out with you guys, whether we're out at Firehouse or FDIC, or seeing Sean up last week up at Great Lakes Hot, or seeing Pablo down at Orlando Fire Conference. Hanging out with the brotherhood and the sisterhood and getting that, hey, that's where we're at. It sort of rejuvenates. Everybody talks about that, I think, a lot after coming back from conferences, but especially for us that teach at some of these conferences, there's more highs and lows because we get rejuvenated, and then we come back down for a little bit, then we might hit the next conference, and it rejuvenates us again. How many times can I say rejuvenate, right?
As much as you want.
But am I right or wrong, Sean? You hit more of these conferences than I do.
You're spot on, man. And I'll tell you this. I always try and be as transparent as possible to anybody I talk to, because I think it's important. People can look at what you're doing on social media, like you said, and they're only getting a snapshot of what reality is. And I will tell you that for the first time in about 17 years, I am in a department where I feel like I belong and I fit in, and I'm like excited to go to work and just fired up every single day because you're with like-minded people and you're just learning so much. But that hasn't always been the case, right? So what was my outlet? My outlet was exactly like you said, John, going to fire conferences, whether it be as an instructor or a student, and just being around other people who get it, who love the job the same way you do, who want to see the fire service progress and stuff like that. And it's intoxicating, it really is. And then you come back and you just can't wait for the next one. But aside from that, like, one of the toughest things I had to learn is that can't be the only thing, right? That can't be the only thing I have to look forward to with this job. Like, if I'm truly going to set an example, I'm going to write things on paper or put them on, Build Your Culture Facebook page or whatever. Like, I have to live that too, even while I'm at work. So it's a lot of self-reflection, digging deep and saying not every day is going to be a good day. But, I got guys like you or Pablo or Mark or somebody that I can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, man, this is the kind of day I'm having. Like, just let me bend your ear for a minute, and that's what we do, right? That's what we do for each other. So the point I'm trying to get at is there are lots of highs and lows, but you're not alone. I guarantee you people have those same highs and lows, and they're all over the country. So put some roots out there, like, start reaching out to people. Even if you don't know them, you'd be surprised how many people, if you reach out to with a question, will come back with an answer and want to help you. And it just, that's it, If we're going to expect sunshine and rainbows every time we go to work throughout our whole career, we're kidding ourselves. That's just not reality. So,
that's bullshit.
That's pretty much what I got is don't get sucked down, into the bullshit. Just be you, stay dedicated to what your mission is, what your views are, what fires you up. But also don't kid yourself to think that, like, there's something wrong with you, right? There's nothing wrong with you. Everybody's got some stuff they gotta fight through. Just, you gotta find a way to get through it.
But hold on a second, Paulo, before you jump in, Sean, I just wanted to touch on something. Sometimes we go to these conferences and we come back, especially as students, when I was younger in my career, and you get that bubble popped. You're coming in, you're like, man, I did this search, I did this forcible entry class, I learned this technique, I want to do it. And hey, guys, let's do this. And then you're like, and you're lower on the totem pole, and it's like, kid, we don't do that here. You got to fight through that culture because you're going to get beat down. Not everybody's going to accept it. You need to be that constant. And I forget who says it. You have to have 10 pounds of pressure 100% of the time. Guys, you guys know who that quote is. But again, you got to
Rob Fisher, I believe.
You got to stay there all the time and maintain that. And then that's where you're going to make your difference. It's the end game. It's not the short game. It's a marathon.
Yeah, it's in the approach too, really.
Absolutely.
You're just going to come to work and be an arrogant prick. Nobody's going to want to listen to you. You're going to get more problems, brought down to yourself. It's all about humility. And sometimes that's hard for us, right? It's hard for us to bring ourselves back down and play that humble card. But that's an important part because we don't know everything and nobody's an expert, right? We're all, like you said, learning and continue to hopefully grow. And, I don't know, whatever it is, search, vertical ventilation, hose line management, whatever. I mean, it doesn't even have to be tactical stuff. It could be stuff inside the firehouse that's going on. You just have to learn how to work with people, and not everybody you're going to get along with, right? Not everybody is going to see eye to eye with you, but that's okay. That's what makes us like a team, right? I don't want everybody to do what I do and feel the way that I feel, right? there's no challenge there. And if there's no challenge, then there's no growth. So instead of looking at that like, oh man, I'm the only guy in the firehouse that feels this way, everybody else hates this, like figure out what the positive is of your situation. Like, what can I learn? Even if it's what not to do, you're going to learn something, right? So you got to figure out how to spin that and not allow it to mentally drain you to where like you're not a functional member of the crew, right? Because I mean, then you're part of the problem.
So I kind of want to tag on what you said here, kind of in the beginning of this, right? Which is the lows, because I think that's what we focus on so much, just as a culture of people, right? Not just the fire department, right? But like America loves the lows, right? Our culture is based on watching people on TV that get treated like shit. We like an underdog. That's just kind of our thing. But, you know, as the saying goes, right? Like rough seas make strong sailors. And that's very true in the fire service. And I think sometimes what we miss in these lows is that, you know, that's how we avoid complacency. That's how we grow. That's how we innovate. That's how we change things. And so without the lows, you wouldn't really appreciate the highs. And, you know, Sean, I know you've moved departments a few times. Pablo, I know you've moved as well. I've moved. And I think something that you bring to the table, you know, when you go kind of against that old school fire service culture of staying somewhere for 30 years and then going home, is that you have a whole set of experiences to speak to that other people don't. So like, oh, this place sucks because we don't do A. Oh, well, let me tell you about A at the last place I worked, right? And they're like, oh, you endured that? Yeah. And then so then you could be like, oh, well, now it's my turn, right? Oh, I think this sucks to this fire department. Oh, well, man, you know, 20 years ago, it was 10 times worse here. So you should appreciate what we have. And so I think without those experiences, it goes to just show you that you don't know how good you have it sometimes. And if we're not having these conversations with each other, if we're just sitting there and getting in that group of people that complains, then yeah, we're going to be in a low the whole time. But if you want to get out of it, you got to be able to speak to that. You have to be able to share your thoughts and your experiences and remind each other that, hey, while this may not be good, let's be thankful for all these other things. Or at the end of the day, that bell's going to ring in an hour and we're going to forget about it because we're going to get to do what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like one of the best quotes that I've read lately is like, I think it said, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And what I took from that is we all got something to give, right? And if you're going to sit there and just going to keep your mouth shut, you don't want to make it, you know, a case for why maybe we have to change things or whatever, or even just ask questions because you personally don't understand something. You're not going to gain that knowledge. It's not going to happen. So we've got to also learn throughout these seasons that, you know, that some people will be like, hey, shut the fuck up. Nobody cares what you have to say. But that's not the point. Like we're not banging the loud drum just to hear ourselves speak. Like sometimes it's legitimately like, hey, I want to know because I don't understand this. And in order for me to understand you or this process, I have to understand the why behind this all. And that often doesn't get asked. You know, we rather fight and argue for our limitations and realize there's really none, right? We can all speak to each other. And even if we disagree, right? At least I now know like why you feel the way you do and you feel the way I do. And we can kind of navigate through this a little bit better, right? I might learn something. I might realize that maybe the way that I felt about something wasn't the best, right? So that's kind of the whole thing is speak up. Like, don't be afraid, right? The problem is when we can't respect each other and we start attacking one another. That's where the problems come in. If we could just get past that and just treat each other as like adults and realize like this is just a conversation, that's all this is, right? I'm not going to attack you, you're not going to attack me, but we just understand what's happening. And that'll take you so much further than you'd ever think, right? So that's just kind of one of the things that I read lately that made me think when I was in my funk, like, oh shit, you know, I don't know everything and I should probably ask more questions.
Pablo, you want to talk on that, or so I got something I can talk to regarding Sean's and the why.
No, I mean, just to elaborate on it. I mean, I obviously feel the same. We all have the same type of personality and the same type of views. So I obviously feel the same way. You know, it's funny. I always think that one of our biggest assets in the fire service is actually one of our biggest enemies, which is the fire conference itself, the actual fire conference. You know, you go to a fire conference and you meet, you know, you meet anywhere from, it doesn't matter whether you're an instructor or a student, you meet people there that are just like these firefighters, firemen, firewomen that are just so passionate and so excited about the job that you for whatever reason, for 2 or 3 days, you tend to think that everybody's like that. And then, and the more conferences you go to, the more you think that everybody should be like that. And what happens is that then in your mind, you start kind of getting this resentment for people in your own area for not being like that. And then that just resentment just grows and grows and grows. And then all of a sudden you come in one day and you're just like this asshole that really nobody wants to be around because everybody thinks that you just belittle them or you talk down to them, whatever, and it's like, I always say, I always say there's different levels of talent to this shit, right? You've heard me say that all the time, like there's different levels of talent to this shit. Having said that, there's also different levels of motivation to this shit. Just because a dude doesn't or a chick doesn't feel the same way that I do doesn't mean that they don't like the job or don't want to do the job or don't want to go fight fire or don't want to do whatever, So I try my hardest at my own firehouse, and I'm sure I failed at this. I don't know. I'm sure I have someone get on here and fucking call me a liar. I don't know, but I try my hardest at my own firehouse to not be a person that just like is so into the job that it turns people away from the job. I just want to, like, I always try to remember the kid that went to the fire academy. Not going to a fire conference, nothing like that. The kid that just went to a fire academy and thought that firefighters were cool, that the fire truck was cool, that running calls was cool, going through red lights was cool, just helping someone was cool. I try to remember that dude, and every single time that I go to work, I try to be that dude. I don't try to be the guy that goes to conferences and teaches, or the guy that hangs out with certain people or whatever the hell. I don't try to be that. I don't give a fuck about any of that stuff. I just want to go to work and I have fun. Within that, I hold myself accountable to a certain standard, and then I hope that others will follow that certain standard because they like the way that standard I hold it. Whether it be the way that I know the job, whether it be the way that I treat my patients on medical calls, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the ultimate stay in your lane. I just remember literally why I got into the job. I try to tap into that little fucker that was in fire academy in my mind, bring them out every single time that I go to work, and I tend to have more fun at the job like that, man. If I go to work and and I just start getting all kinds of pissy because fucking I'm at station whatever X on this battalion, but station X on that battalion had a job, and they and instead of putting it out with 1,200 gallons of water, those dumb motherfuckers, they use 5,000 gallons. Man, I don't give a fuck. Did the fire go out? Did anybody get hurt? Whatever, Do we need to learn from their mistakes? All right, let's learn from it. If they did well, let's learn from that shit too. And that's the way that I keep myself grounded at the firehouse, man, and at work. If not, you're gonna have a fuck ton of seasons to go through in your mind.
All right, so you just, sorry, John, he just hit on something that maybe think.
You want to talk about that? So I typed Y because I'm typing in notes so I don't forget shit as we're going through.
Yeah, sorry. For whoever doesn't know, I talk with my hands. I say bro and fuck. That's 3 things you're going to notice.
But you're not Italian.
But I'm not. I'm Cuban. I'm like I'm better. I'm the next step up.
He's South Italian.
Southern Italian?
I'm the Southern Italian. I'm the next rung up.
No, man.
I thought that was Sicily, but that's besides the point.
Oh, God. Anyways, so you brought up a good point, man, with the, especially with how we look at other people and, we get on YouTube, we get on Facebook and all that. And I've sort of changed my tune over the years. I agree. Like, we shouldn't be out there bashing people, right? We shouldn't be out there taking other people down. But at the same time, if you're out there operating in a manner that doesn't make any sense, and you were brave enough to broadcast it on the internet, you better be prepared to handle it, right? You better be able to speak to it. And you can do that constructively, or you can do it like an asshole, right? That's the difference to me. But I think in a lot of ways, we've encouraged people to be so nice and tolerant and accommodating everything that we almost don't know how to call each other out anymore, which leads us down these dark paths in our departments because we're really good at doing it behind each other's backs. We're really bad at doing it to each other's faces. And when we do it to our faces, you're picking on me, right? You're targeting me. You're discriminating against me. You're harassing me. That's how it comes off now. And to me, that's where we really get down these kind of dark rabbit holes. So, something I kind of want to speak to here as we kind of moving along. John, you want to go before I put us down a different path?
Yeah. As to like the resentment aspect of it, yes, you come back from conferences, you want to train, and then you got the guys that are sitting in the armchairs that are there for, unfortunately, maybe the paycheck. And then it's frustrating from my point of view as when I was a young firefighter, and you got these guys that are like, I'm like, man, you don't understand the fire service. And they may have been told, hey, take the test because they pay well. They got great benefits. That there's some resentment there because you know that they're not at the level that you're at. And not everybody's going to be at the total A game. I totally get that. But I need to know that somebody's going to be there and be proficient. Getting out and training and doing all that stuff. There was a guy I used to break his chops tons of times when I was a younger guy. I was junior to him, and he'd sit back and watch me do stuff. And I'm like, step up, come on with me, help me, and come along for the ride. And, and eventually later on in his career, he got it, which is cool because he was able to get it in his career. But there is sort of that frustration that you're like, come on, it's not just a paycheck. There's lives on the line. So it's just one of those things that you get frustrated with. Oh, hey, Chief, just showed up.
Yeah.
But the other part about that was going back to Sean's stuff on the why. For the last couple of years, explaining the why to my officers and to my firefighters exponentially paid off. Given the example, they joke about the why generation. Yes, they want to understand everything. Well, you know what? There's a time and place to that. Again, on the fire scene, and I'm telling you to do something totally different. But when we get back or in a drill, the why is important. And years ago, when I guess all of us got on, even Chief Alora, it was because I said so. Now it's totally a different culture. It's because I said so on a fire scene, but when we're in training and or in the firehouse, the why has to get explained to make it better.
So I'm glad you went this way though, because I was about to go down the route of frustrations anyway. So we're on track. But to speak to your why comment, man, like I've spoke about this before. I kind of came on in the in-between, right, between the generations. And it wasn't that you couldn't ask why before. It's that you understood that you should kind of show up and go on some runs and learn and watch before you ask the why, where now it's being asked up front. So
have some credibility first.
Yeah, the why has always been there. I just feel like the way it was explained years and decades ago was that when you needed to know something, the guys who have been there and done that, they would tell you. And a lot of your questions would be answered if you would just shut up long enough to get there. But nowadays, it's a why to the point of the people coming on now want a definitive answer for what will happen and what they will be asked to do in an A to Z order in the bay before the call even comes in. For every call type, every address, every possibility, they need a playbook for all of them because critical thinking is not taught anymore the way it was to us. And so that's the challenge on our end is how do you teach that, right? Now you're getting into parenting. We're going to get down a whole different rabbit hole, which goes right into frustration, right? So the root of our frustrations, because to me, you can't speak to how somebody's seasons in their career can be managed without starting with why do we get frustrated, right? So I made a little list to kind of push this conversation in whatever direction it goes, but these are the main ones I can think of. These are the main ones that you get low in your career over these frustrations. There's a lack of progress, either with your crew, or with your department, your region, your state, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. There's a lack of progress, often related to our perspective of what progress looks like versus what reality is for it. There's some kind of a lack of support. either from your crew, your company officer, your fire chiefs, your fire commissioners, whatever. A lack of numbers, like we've just kind of spoke to. There's not enough people that care in this department, even though those numbers, again, are based on perspective. Worrying about the wrong stuff, AKA my position is actually pretty decent, but I'm trying to play fire chief from the back seat. And now I'm frustrated over things that quite honestly, I shouldn't be worried about. And I'll be honest, I've been there, I've done it. That's how I know it. A lot of the time, this is a big one to me. This is one I've been stumbling down this hole a lot lately. We're focused on things that don't have a direct impact to our service delivery. And let that kind of sink in, right? Like a lot of the things that piss us off don't even translate to when we go out the door. It's the other shift puts the pots and pans in the wrong cabinet, right? It's they bought the wrong freaking car wash again, and the trucks, that soap does it. It's stupid crap like that, and it just infects people. And then finally to tie them all together, and I'm going to shut my mouth and grab a beer and listen to you guys talk. Just blowing things out of proportion in general. Like we allow very small things to create huge lows in our career and just drive us nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And
absolutely. It's the little things, Mark, I just texted this to you. The little things add up. And what do we do with the rookie? We tell him what to do is his first day. His or her first day. We want to see them do what they're told. Because if they follow rules in the firehouse on mopping dishes, making coffee, how to do housework, they're going to follow directions on the fire ground. When they can't follow directions in the firehouse, how are they going to follow directions on the fire ground? That's one of my takeaways from that. So we have to explain the whys sometimes a little bit more in the station to build that understanding. I said this to my 11-year-old daughter. I said, Kelly, you've got to listen to me. And when I tell you to do something, you've got to do it. And she's like, well, why? I said, because there's going to come a time that it's going to be an emergency. And I'm going to need to know that you're going to handle what I tell you to do, because that's going to be very important for your safety or the safety of somebody else. And that falls right back in line with the fire service. Sorry, Sean, I jumped.
You're right, John. And I'm going to take a minute to pick on my good friend and chief / mentor, Jacob Johnson, right? Because I kind of, it's not that I disagree with either of what you and Mark have said, but I almost feel like some of our issues and our frustrations and things like that come from mentors, right? Not having a lack of them, or maybe not having the right one for what our needs are. So I would like to kind of get Jacob's viewpoint and going through seasons in our career, the frustrations and all that stuff, and see how he feels from that direction of a mentor standpoint. I don't know if you can hear.
Sorry,
Jacob,
Chief, I think I'm muted.
Jacob, you're muted.
No, yeah, I'm good now. Y'all just kind of catch me up on what y'all were talking about, because it was a little broken on my end.
So we're talking about seasons in our careers, the highs, the lows, some things that frustrate us, other things that might contribute to problems in and outside of the firehouse. So my question is to you from your mentor stuff, which you do an excellent job with. When it comes to highs and lows, like you've experienced, and we've talked about it through your personal experiences, how do you feel that affected you in your career? And what do you think is the fix?
Okay. I mean, honestly, so yeah, I mean, through my career, I've had several highs and lows, and they affect you immensely. Like if they don't, then you're not human. To me, our life at home directly affects our life in the firehouse, and our understanding of what life should be at home, or what our life should be outside of the firehouse, directly affects our life in the firehouse. And so I've always found, man, like the big fix for everything is your relationship with your guys and your girls inside the firehouse. And so honestly, what I what I do the most is when I'm having a bad day or I've had a bad set off, like I tell the guys straight up, I send a tour info email, right? It's called tour info. Every first day of our tour, we work 48s. I send out an email to all the officers. Here's what's going on. Here's what happened on our 4 off. Here's what the other 2 shifts have dealt with. Here's what we got on the plate for today. And then I always tell them, like, hey, I'm struggling. Like, if I'm struggling or I've had a bad set off, like, hey, I've had a bad set off. I could really use y'all to step up and make sure you handle your jobs and do what you need to do and kind of lighten the load on my end. And what I realize is when I go around and I step into the firehouses, I get a lot of like, Chief, are you good? Chief, here's a cup of coffee. A lot of hugs, which some make me a little uncomfortable, right? But I walk in and they're just like, they're embracing, right? Because they know that I'm going through some stuff or that I'm in a low point. And what I've found is that, man, when I come in and I'm like, hey, everything's good, like life is good, then the guys at work, like, they're less stressed and they seem to perform better because they're not worried about me. And so I think the way that I project to them how much I worry about them and how much I rely on them and how much that I depend on them to perform to the expectations, they reciprocate that in me whenever I say that I'm having a low point, that they reciprocate that when I'm having that day where I just need a little extra effort out of them. They're willing to put that forward because they know that I do that for them, 100% of the time. But on the other aspect too, like, if you're going to have that relationship, or if you want to have that relationship with your people, you have to put the effort into having that. You have to sit them down and invest in their lives. You have to invest in their families. Kind of some of the things that several people here tonight have had where I write letters to the spouses, right? Like, you have to invest in their families and let them know how important they are to you and let them know how important they are for you and to the job. None of us on this podcast or here tonight or this group chat, whatever you want to call it, none of us are anything without the people we have behind us. And our fire departments are successful because of the people we have behind us and the support that they have for us and the overall mission of the fire service. So we have to keep that, in our minds, and we have to take times as brothers and as sisters to invest in the lives of our people so that we're better able to serve the citizens and do our job there in the firehouse. And I found that when you take those little seconds, man, like when you find the opportunity to take a moment to make an impact in someone's life and you invest in them and in their family, then you have a brother or sister for life that's going to reciprocate that to you. And in your most detrimental need, you will be enveloped with some of the best that the brotherhood has to offer. And that was never more important or never more seen than this last week when my grandmother died. I had flowers sent to her funeral from every firehouse on the B shift, including the union. I had the fire chief calling me and texting me. I had the assistant chief calling me and texting me, stuff that I've never experienced in my career. And I think it's because I take just little seconds and I find those opportunities, take a moment to make an impact, and I invest myself in them. And it just really showed through this week. And I think that's one of the most important things that we're missing on the job today is we become very selfish and self-centered in a lot of ways because people may not think like we think, or they may not perform like we perform. And we say, oh, well, they just don't get it, but we're not taking the opportunity to invest in them and to make them better. And I think that's something that really needs to be kicked up a notch, in the words of Emerald there. Do a little boom when it comes to the job is really investing in people's lives.
Go ahead, John.
Jacob, I want to touch base on that. How many stations you got?
We have 6.
Okay. So when I was working, we had 2 stations, so it was really easy for me. I call it a size up, and I've talked about this, I think, prior podcasts that we've done. I would go, and before the bell hit, as guys were putting their gear on, setting up to put their gear on the truck, I'd go and see each of them, ask them how their family is doing, how's their kid. I sized everybody up because as a boss, you need to know if everybody's head's in the game or not, right? And if somebody's not in the game, we're going to figure out why. because we're close enough. I had a shift of 24 plus me. So it was only 12 in one house and 12 in the other. So I was able to go and see my house where I was stationed in the morning. And then once I was done with breakfast, I was downtown house, and I made sure I saw all the officers and all the firefighters, talk to them. Hey, how you doing today? What's going on? Hey, how's your kid? How's the baseball game? Those little things, and you actually touched on it, those little connections are huge.
Yep.
Because when you call on your officers or your firefighters or your senior firefighters to step up because something's going on in your life or something's going sideways within the department, they need to know you've got them and they've got you.
Right.
So that was an excellent point on that.
100%. And, and also, John, too, like for me, I have 44 people on my shift, right? And I'm the only chief. So I don't get around to every station, every tour. Why? Because I also respect the fact that when I was a lieutenant, I didn't want a chief in my house every tour. Like they get in the way, right? So let me do my thing and you do yours. I know that you got to come and save face or whatever it is, but I didn't want to be there. So I don't make rounds every tour, but I do a Zoom like this every tour with my officers, and then I send that tour info email. But what also is important is that, like you were saying, when you go around and you say, hey, how was the baseball game? How was this? Is, man, like when they hit you with this, right? So like this week, right? Hey, chief, I'm going through a divorce. Got a guy going through a divorce. Okay, man, I feel bad for you, right? And I genuinely do, right? But he wants to use or she wants to use that divorce as an excuse to not do their job completely. You cannot allow that to happen, right? And I think that's what a lot of people misconstrue the definition of brotherhood is. They want to use brotherhood or the word family as an excuse to not do your job or to allow shortcomings of the job, rather than using it as an example to hold them accountable, right? And so to me, like this guy says, hey, I'm going through a divorce. I don't think I should be FTOing this person right now on the ambulance. I don't think I have what it takes to really dive into them and make them great. And so I told him, I said, hey, I love you. I've known you for 15 years, but here's what I can tell you. You will complete your job of FTO on this ambulance, and you will do right by this new hire, because it is not his fault and it's not her fault that you're going through what you're going through. And so I need you to dive in, and I need you to be here, because when you're here for Pearland Fire Department, you're here 100%. Because if you cannot dedicate your time to this new hire and make his career great, then how can I trust you to go out there and perform your job to the citizens? So if you're willing to put your mind in the background for a citizen, you need to be willing to do it for your brother or your sister here in the firehouse. And I need you to do that job. On your 4 days off, I'm there for you. Whatever you need a bed, you need a house, I'm there. But for your 48 hours in this firehouse, you owe that new guy like I always say, right? You owe him the opportunity to have a love affair with the job, and you owe him the opportunity to learn his job. And so I need you to dive in, teach him how he should be taught, and complete the mission of getting him checked off as a fireman and as a paramedic. So, that's the one thing too I like to throw in there is just don't use the words brotherhood and family as an excuse to give them a break on their job or to not do their job. Use it as a reason to hold them accountable.
I got two things to follow up with you there, Jacob. And, I think everybody here can probably relate to this. I mean, if you're, into the job like we are, you're on this podcast, this webcast, right? Like you probably like the fire service at a higher level. But we have to understand that not everybody at the firehouse, John, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier in the episode, not everybody is there to be a family. Not everybody is there for brotherhood. Not everybody is there for the same reasons as us. And that's okay. And that's sometimes the hardest pill to swallow, and such a root of frustration for so many people that want to do this job on a high level, is having to accept that there's going to be mutts, right? And I don't care if you work at McDonald's or FDNY, there's going to be mutts on the roster, and they're going to meet the minimum standard, which we all despise. And you have to accept that. But we can't lose focus and sit there trying to convert them, over to us all the time and do the same thing we do. All you can do is hope that your influence makes them actionable, right? And able to do the job on a level that's not going to get you injured or killed. and move on with your day. And if they come around cool, and if they do 20 years of meeting the minimum, they don't get you hurt. Well, I mean, who are we to judge,
Right.
So I think that's important to note. And kind of what you spoke to there, Jacob, at the end, something my battalion chief has said, multiple times that is stuck with me is two things. One, nobody has ever walked in this office and returned their paycheck because they said that they didn't do a good job this week, right? You get paid to do, even if you're a volunteer, right? You're probably getting retirement, or you're getting paid per call, or you're getting some kind of benefit. But on the career side, especially, nobody's turning in their paycheck after 2 weeks saying, hey, I did shitty this week, I'll do better next week. They're still taking it, And when your life is in shambles, this is the one bit of stability you have. Don't fuck it up too, right? If everything else around you is collapsing, come to the firehouse for your safe haven. And I'm not stupid enough like I was when I was younger to think, oh, you can check it at the parking lot, right? Like, you're going to be down, you're going to be kind of miserable, but this is the one place where things are going right, where you can make a difference in somebody's life. So don't let your outside life come in here and bring you down. Enjoy it, right? Let it build you up. Mark, I'm trying to figure out how to unmute him. Let's see. There we go. My brother, my Marine brother. I don't even know if he meant to put his hand up. He is a Marine.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, is Virginia even a state?
Oh, God.
Absolutely. It's a Commonwealth. It's a Commonwealth.
Well, it was one of the first.
It's quasi. It's quasi. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know what it wants to be.
All right. Anyways.
So yeah, I know we're supposed to be talking about basically the seasons of our career and the ups and downs and where those come from, and that, I think that's great. But the family discussion always gets a reaction out of me, because what you said is exactly on point. Not everybody has the same connection, the same love, the same passion for the job, but that doesn't automatically disqualify them from us, if we're in that role, from us discounting them. And that's what I see a lot of the meat eaters, a lot of the, I fight what you fear. And as soon as they feel like that person isn't performing to their standard, they're done. Oh, that guy's a that guy's a POS. He's not into it like I'm into it. And it's like, well, first of all, who made you the ultimate arbiter? And then the second part of that is they usually jump to the family. Oh, well, this is a family. This is the brother and sisterhood, and they're not into it, so they're not part of the family. Dude, I'm trying to remember the name of that family out in California that locked their 13 kids in the basement. Technically, they were a family. And the idea that just because we're a family, there's certain inherent rights to basically break, excuse the language, break balls and deride people. And, oh, that's part of it. No, it's not. You got to, the first part of this is treating people with respect, is to understand, especially in a leadership role. And for those guys and gals that maybe don't have formal rank, but they've got that standing, they've got that love for the job, instead of recognizing that they are in a leadership role and they should be using that for good, instead of shuffling those people off to the side and saying, they're not into it like I'm into it, so screw them. Well, maybe they're not into it because you're being an asshole. Maybe they're not into it because they don't want to be with you and you're the problem, instead of you reaching out, taking a hand and saying, hey, look, these are the good parts of the job. This is what I've experienced, and bringing them along. So, yeah, the family part, I see a lot of guys and gals who use that as an excuse for like the most aberrant behavior. And instead of looking at the good part of being a family, and that, that, hey, I love my brother to death, but there's certain things about him that I'm like, you're an idiot. And he looks at me like I'm a total moron. And so, I get that, but there's still that baseline respect for who we are. And that's the part that I think sometimes gets lost, which, if we're going to tie it in with the discussion, leads to those changes in season. Because then now somebody's not into the job, and maybe it's a chicken before the egg argument because people aren't bringing them in. So my 2 cents.
To talk about that, and when I had my first introduction as when I became a battalion chief, I said, guys, we're a family. We're going to have highs, we're going to have lows. Families fight, families make up. There's always going to be some flux. With 25 different personalities, things are going to always be moving. And understanding that families have compassion for each other, that's where we're at. And fortunately, when I wound up leaving, when I retired, we were a tighter group, and we were a family. When I walked out, we had some issues, some growing pains, and then when I retired, I walked out. We were a tight family, and it's still to this day. I reach out to different individuals within the tour, some of the officers, some of the junior firefighters, some of the senior guys, and I'm hearing it that, hey, we're helping this guy do this, this, and this. This guy's having a hard time. We're working with him. So again, life gets in the way sometimes. Things get thrown. We get thrown curveballs on the job and outside of the job, and that's where our other family steps in to help out.
Yeah, me and my brother used to fight like cats and dogs. He'd always whoop my ass because he was bigger, he was a year younger. But, at the end of the day, we'd come back to it, and we took care of each other. We looked out for each other. We never lost that. That's what the family is. It's not rainbows and puppy kisses and everybody loves everybody. There's going to be those moments. And plus, I think this was just getting hit on what Chief Johnson said. Yeah, sometimes you got to have that hard moment of like, hey, you're screwing up. You to have that difficult conversation, and that's the art of it, is doing it with that baseline respect, so the person walks away like, yeah, I'm kind of screwing the pooch right now. But if you treat that person without that respect, without that fundamental love for who they are, and say, yeah, hey, I know you're screwing up, but we're going to get you where you need to be, but you've got to take ownership of where you're at. You can't have that. And that's the part where it sometimes gets lost. But my brother Mark, who spells his name correctly, pointed out the family is the Turpins. And Sean, your point is exactly right. That's where the beginning, the seeds of that dissatisfaction, the seeds of that bad season for that member, especially the young ones. That's the part that really kills me. I'm dealing with the situation where I'm going to be getting a new member on the crew, and there were some things going on in the other environment, and it has to boil down to that baseline respect for the person, and that fundamentally, and this is why Chief Johnson, I love you to death. That idea of that love is the key part. You got to love them with all their warts, and you got to say, I'm going to make them better. I'm going to help them get there where they need to, even if it takes some harsh truths every now and again, but with respect. And that's the part that gets missed. And I think Sean was hitting on that too.
Right on, man. Sean, Pablo, you got anything?
I'll let Pablo talk. He's been quiet, and I haven't really heard enough F-bombs out of him yet. So
he's a dad now, man. He's trying to sleep with his eyes open. He's trying to get some rest.
What you got, Pablo?
We're at number 6 right now. I think we're going on 7.
Yeah,
rookie numbers.
No, I mean, I was hitting on the same thing earlier, man. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse, but yeah, I agree. Like I said, there's different levels of motivation. There's different levels of talent, and there's different levels of motivation to the job. And just because someone is not as motivated, quote unquote, as I am, doesn't mean that person doesn't like the job. I always talk through my asshole to get to my elbow. Pardon the analogies, but even in sports, there are role players. Not everybody's going to be a Peyton Manning. Someone's going to have to be the backup to Peyton Manning. Maybe that guy doesn't study film like Peyton Manning. But if Peyton Manning, belittles that dude, like it's gonna divide the team. Peyton Manning has to somehow be able to let that guy know that, like, hey man, listen, it's okay that you're my backup. I'm Peyton Manning. I'm a fucking Hall of Famer. But you know what? If I get injured, guess what, bro? You're in front of 60,000 people and you got to perform. So like the analogy comes the same way to the firehouse. It's like, man, I get it, bro. You're not gonna go to fucking 10 fire conferences a year. You're not gonna maybe go to someone's house and I don't know, make them a grilled cheese sandwich, whatever the fuck, because they're like 92 years old and they're hungry. I don't know. You might not be that person. But you know what, man, when the time comes, you need to perform. You need to perform well, because this is our job. I said the same thing earlier. I'm just kind of like beating the dead horse. I couldn't agree more. I'm doing it more violently with my hands. See what I do here. Actually, if you don't mind, Mark, go back to your first 3 one of those things you hit on. So just to move the conversation forward, hit the first three again.
The frustration ones.
Yeah.
So lack of progress either with your department or your crew, often based off your perspective of what progress looks like versus actual progress. Lack of support either on your crew or with your department, and then lack of numbers of like individuals, within the ranks.
Right. Lack of support goes back to literally what we were just talking about right now. Like lack of, like how motivated is the dude next to me when I'm like fucking ultra motivated. So lack of support goes literally to what we were just talking about right now. But that first one though, if you think about it, one of the things that frustrates me the most, that actually openly frustrates me, is people that don't go outside their department to learn more about the job. Whether, and I've said this, you could be, I don't care if you work for LA, Chicago, New York, or Key West, or in Pearland, Texas. It does not matter where you work. If you do not get out of your comfort zone, you have no idea that you're doing it wrong until you figure out that you're doing it wrong. And there's only one way to figure out that you're doing it wrong, which is literally go somewhere else. And that is actually that is something that openly frustrates me a lot, which is people that legitimately think that they are like really, really, really good. Once again, I'm like really big into the analogies and going through my asshole to get to my elbow, but like it's literally like the dude that just spars all the time. You're just at the gym and you are one hell of a sparring partner. You just spar your little ass off every single day, and one day you're gonna get your ass and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the local gym and get in the actual ring with someone that wants to fight me. That's a whole different ballgame, and maybe you're gonna learn some other things there. You're like, oh shit, man, I learned that this technique is not good here. So that's an open frustration for me, which is literally the lack of, for some people, even the motivated ones, even some people that are motivated, the lack of understanding that there's other places that might do things better than you, or might do things a shit ton worse than you, and you figure out that you're that good actually. But go outside and figure out, and I had this conversation one day. I'll leave you guys with this to talk about this right now, like as open frustration. I had this conversation one time in one of the departments I work for. I'm gonna leave this ridiculously vague, okay? And I'm driving. I'm on an ambulance, and I'm driving it, and the gentleman that I was working with said, yeah, all the hard chargers are all usually, I don't know if he said usually or all, like for sure, are all on the tech team. And I kind of took that back for a second. I said, all of the hard, like, man, because we have a battalion in this certain area that is full of some really hard chargers. Them boys really like to fight fire. Yeah, but like the tech team, that's words. I'm like, oh, okay, because here's the interesting thing about that. I have every freaking tech class there is, man, but I've never seen you at any fire conference. I've never seen you in that particular battalion. Interesting. So it's just kind of one of those things of like, man, be careful of not stepping outside of your comfort zone, because outside of your comfort zone is where you find out how good or shitty you really are. That's my frustration.
I just want to say for the record, I feel like Pablo is the John Wick of his fire department. Like somebody's going to fuck around and find out one day. It's just going to be on.
Nah, man, I'm a Disney princess, bro. I'm like a Spanish Disney princess.
God, they're going to name a street after you someday.
The funny thing to what Pablo's saying though is, and this is no way like saying that you're better than someone, but I've always been a firm believer, like, okay, let's compare apples to apples here. Like if you're saying that you're as good as you claim and someone challenges you, then let's see who comes out on top, right? We'll settle this right now, because if I'm the one talking all the shit, right, and someone challenges me and I can't put up, then I need to eat that slice of humble pie and realize, oh damn, maybe I should shut my mouth a little bit more and learn from other people. And I don't think that happens enough, right? What usually winds up happening is the shit talking, but no action behind it, right? Oh, this guy thinks he's all that because of this. Well, he's wrong. He's full of shit. Okay, well, what makes you so right? You know, and one of the things that I believe that we've lost over time is the ability, you know, to have that competition. It doesn't have to be like cutthroat, but like make it friendly. Hey man, I know I can mask up in 15 seconds. What can you do? You're the one talking shit right now. Let's put it on the table. Let's do it. And again, no, is that not malicious? But what the intent hopefully is that you can come to some common ground and respect one another for one, your strengths, and two, your weaknesses, and be like, man, I need you as much as you need me. So let's cut this all out and work together, right? Because no one's got it all figured out. You know, I'll go to a fire tomorrow and I'll fuck up 76 things, right? And I might learn something from something you did. So if we can humble ourselves and bring it down to that and like say, okay, here it is, right here, right now. Let's do it. Let's see what works, what doesn't work. That's irreplaceable in my mind. And that's what Pablo, I think, is talking about, where you have battalions that are full of these guys. That's not by accident, right? Any hard charger, any person that's motivated wants to be around those same people, because you know what? I guarantee you, if I go to the same battalion that Pablo's in and him and I are like-minded, he's got all those tech certifications. I've got 2. You think I'm going to learn something from him? Yeah, I am. That's where I need to be. That's where I need to be to get better. You think he might learn something from me? Sure, absolutely. So like, we got to stop the segregation of like, just because you're on a tech team or just because you're on a truck company or whatever, you work in this battalion, like you're better than everybody else. That's not true, right? We're all in the same playing field here. So we got to learn how to play together.
Guys have set me up for the perfect. Mark, you got something, brother?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just real quick on that. Organizationally, that is critical, and you see that where people start stovepiping and they start aggregating into one place, and then all of a sudden you got a bunch of A+ here, but then the other side of town, across the street, whatever, you got your C-, and that average is not good because it's all on one side. It becomes lopsided. More importantly, when you talk about a crew, just on a crew, you see that same thing happening. And that segregation that he just mentioned is death. That is absolute poison to a crew when you start pushing, they're not good enough. And when you've got 6, 7, 8, 10 people together and you're starting to cut away the herd, the weak ones from the herd, quote unquote, and that one's off to the side, those two are off to the side, that's poison. And you see, but it becomes simple for that crew leader, that officer. They're like, oh, I can invest in the guys who are doing stuff for me all day long because I know they're going to get it done. Yeah, but at dark, when you turn around and you got that C- player and you haven't invested in them and you've cut them away the entire time, you're screwed. You've literally cut your own throat. And so that hits on that same theme about family, you've got to bring them all in. And that's the hard part, because that takes more work than if you just invest in your A+, because the A+ only needs a little bit. They need little injects. The C- or the D or the F needs a lot of work, but that's the job.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I will say the one flip side to that can be equally toxic is that if you take a group of people that have a great chemistry and together they are an A+, and you try to distribute them to all the C-, you can inadvertently bring those A+ down to a C- because they become frustrated, they become worn down, they become tired. And I see this all the time in departments all over the place where, oh, sorry, we got to break you guys up because this shift needs help and that station needs help. And so it's kind of that catch-22 thing. But, you know, there's a difference between A+ players and the chemistry of an A+ team. And as a leader and as a supervisor and a manager, you really got to understand the difference between somebody who can kill it anywhere and a group of people that are killing it because they're together. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, let's go mathematics with it, right? Like, I hate math, I suck at it, but let's go with it. What makes an average go up or down, right? Either more good or more bad, right? So if your average is a 60 and you throw in a 90 in there, your average is going to go up to like a 62, right? But if your average is a 95 and you throw a 60 in there, your average is going to go down to like a 93, right? So that's the thing, is that they all want to try to conquer and divide, is the excuse I was always given, right? Like, we're taking this person from you because they're really good and they have a good attitude and we're going to put them over here. if you take something good and put it in an average of subpar, that person will become subpar. There's only so much that a human can endure. There's only so much that the human brain can consume. There's only so much that a positive attitude and outlook and behavior can take before they just finally say, fuck it, and put their hands in the air. Right. And then they become exactly that. Right. Yeah, that's one for me. So, I mean, so that's where it is with that. Right. And it's like, I hear all of this, and then I go back to a couple of weeks ago, we got a new fire chief, and it was like a question to me, what is the number one thing that we're battling, here in Pearland or here in the fire department and here in the fire service? And I said, it's real simple to me. I said, it goes hand in hand, money and mentoring. Right. And then I got like laughs like, oh yeah, of course you would say mentoring. No, but I'm serious, right? Now that we're paying firemen, there's no reason for people to not want to join the fire service. You're 18 years old, you're making $70,000 a year, and you work 10 days a month. Who wouldn't want to do that? Right? And then now you throw in some shitty attitudes and you don't mentor them. And now you're not producing the firemen for the citizens that they expect. Right? And so it's like, when I have a new guy, I just did it the other day. I sit him down in the truck with me in the battalion ride. I buy him a cup of coffee and I sit down on a side street and I look at cars and I tell them, what do you see in these cars? And they're like, well, people going about their day or whatever they come up with. And I said, yeah, you're right. I said, but I see personally I see expectations rolling down the road. I see people that have expectations for us. I see people that see us as their last hope. I see people that look at the fire department as someone that will make their day better. And so when I see that, I see anxiety to perform to the best of our abilities. And I said, if I do not train you, if I do not teach you, if I do not invest in your family or in you for you to perform at those expectations, then I have failed you and I have failed the citizens. And I said, regardless of your paycheck, you have expectations to meet that far outweigh that paycheck. And if you cannot handle that, then you don't deserve to be a Pearland fireman, plain and simple, right? And that is what I think is hurting the fire service in general. Like everybody's dropping bombs, everybody's speaking on the right terms, but it's like, to me, if we went back to pipemen making $35,000 a year, I think we would get people here that truly wanted to be here and truly wanted to learn the job and be good at it, versus an 18-year-old kid who wants to go float the river here in Texas. Well, I mean, there ain't one now. We ain't had no rain, but go float the river here in Texas while he makes $70,000 a year, right, on his 4 days off or her 4 days off. And if we got guys and girls that were really wanting to do this job for no matter the pay, I think we'd be a lot better. And if not us on this webcast, right, because we're here on a freaking Sunday, right, but if you had us sitting in the firehouses, like actually talking and actually teaching and actually investing, then we would have no issues in the fire department. On top of that, we all bitch about people, me included. If we held ourselves as the fire service to the expectation of those that we bitch about, we would have no issues in the fire department. Yeah. But we always want to say that somebody's less or somebody's worse or somebody's this, right? But at the same time, what are we doing to make sure we uphold the expectation we're holding others to?
Hey,
so a lot of that goes together.
Chief Johnson, actually, just on your point right there, just real quick before I get out of here, or not get out of here, but just because I want you to speak on this specifically. How long do you? It's kind of a rhetorical question because I know you personally, so I kind of know what your answer is going to be, but I would love for you just to say it out loud. How long do you wait to rip the veil off the face of the kids that are coming into the fire service nowadays? So part of mentoring for me, and part of mentoring and having people respect the job coming in, having that 18-year-old that is, making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year coming into the job. Part of having that person respect the job is letting them know that we're not just there to fight fire. A lot of those people are coming in and they think that we are firemen and that's all we do. And when they get their veil ripped off their face ridiculously fast and know that we are doing 90% EMS. I don't care if you work for New York, LA, or Key West. They work in 90% EMS. And every once in a while, you're gonna encounter someone, or a lot of times, you're gonna encounter someone that is taking advantage of the system. That you might not ride the rig that you want to ride, whatever the hell it is. If you let the person coming in to the firehouse, if we slowly rip the veil off their face of the fire academy, because the fire academy, as instructors in the fire academy, they're so good in freaking that paramilitary, boom, 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 knife hand, firefighter, everything. You do, whatever, 2-3 months worth of fire academy, which is nothing but fire. And you learn about the line of duty deaths and the maydays and the this and the that, and which is ridiculously important to know. I understand that. But you never get told about the other side of the job. So when you get to the other side of the job, it's like you rip the veil off the face, and all of a sudden you got a year and a half on the job, and you're like disgruntled because you don't realize that at 3 o'clock in the morning when the tones drop, it ain't like backdraft, and you're like, oh, we're going to a fucking job. No, maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning I got to go pick someone up off the ground that literally just slid off the recliner because they felt like getting up and making a fucking grilled cheese at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they fell while they were eating. Right. So it's like part of the job for me, or part of the mentoring for me, is slowly ripping the veil off their face and basically letting them know, listen, brother or sister, you are a first responder. We are here for the community. We're firemen. And at the end of the day, our primary job is to protect lives, the whole 9 yards, right? I get it. But I also I try my hardest to let them know that we are the quintessential first responder. If it ain't criminally related, and the 911 call comes in under the sun or under the moon, we're going to go and we're going to have to take care of whatever problem it is. Rip the veil off the face a little slower, and maybe you have a better group of people coming in.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, right? So I hit them first thing, right? I tell them, like, look, if you came to Pearland to solely be a fireman and stretch hose every day, that's not what you're going to do. And so this fire department's not for you. And I said, what you will see and what we will train you for is that when you get off probation, as passionate as you are with stretching hose, I want you to take that passion. I want you to be that good at innovation. Absolutely. And I want you to put that effort that you put into cutting a hole or into forcing a door. I want you to put the same effort that you do into finding somebody's issue on an EMS call and being able to pseudo fix it until we get to the hospital. Absolutely. I want you to have a passion for people. Yeah. I want you to have a passion for our citizens. I want you to have a passion to provide a service to them that they expect and that will fix them or help them. I want you to understand, and this is all part of the first conversation I have with them. I want you to understand that our purpose in this life as a Pearland fireman or as a fireman in general is far greater than stretching hose and putting water on the fire.
Outstanding. I couldn't agree.
Yeah, and so I think if you hit them with that right off the bat, and then throughout their training you continue to back that up, then you by far have a greater product because you went through the correct process and getting them there than you do if you just rip it off right off the bat and say this, right? Because if you rip it right off the bat, you could also rip it off the wrong way and be like, fuck EMS, and then you're doing 90%. Yeah, you're doing 90% EMS, and they're not putting any effort into it, and then you're killing people left and right, and you don't have any problem with that, but you pull out a burned body and you want to cry over that. It doesn't make any sense,
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I figured it out. Episode 18 is going to be fire versus EMS. We've got a topic. You guys are awesome. Chief Alora, let's see if I can get him on mute.
Hey, Chief, I got something to add for you there from here in Texas.
Go ahead, Justin. Sorry, Chief. Let Justin's got something real quick. We'll go to you, Chief. Go ahead, Justin.
So, like Sean, we know each other. Then Pablo, I've met you. So, like, I bounced around from Texas to New Mexico to Georgia and then back to Texas. And, so I've got to see a little bit of how, different departments do things and how they represent themselves and what the expectations are, right? And when I came back to Texas, I worked in the mid-cities between Dallas and Fort Worth. And I stayed there about a year and a half. And very EMS-driven department. Good guys, great equipment. The money was there. Very typical Texas pay. but the expectations weren't laid out. You know, like I got told 6 months into being there, my passion was appreciated, but for the longevity of my career, I should consider being less passionate about the job.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, seriously. So for me,
that line would fuck that. Anyway, go ahead.
It's like a sit down eval too. So it was one of those things where, you know, you got guys in the department that blame the chief, and then guys say, you know, water boils from the bottom. But culturally, it was embedded within the entire department. And you know, I made the move out to Parker County on the west side of Fort Worth, and we're very open and honest about what we do. You know, we fight double the national average of fire. Doesn't mean we're going to fires every day, but we go to a decent amount. And but we do run EMS. We still take care of business and that stuff that we have to do. But it's very clear cut of what we do here and what our expectations of our firemen are, our drivers, our officers, and that being very clear cut from even the outside looking in. Yeah, I took a huge pay cut to come out here, but the guys out here are taking pay cuts to leave the city of Dallas, city of Fort Worth, Arlington, Irving. They're leaving those places to come here because the expectation is very clear of what we do versus, hey, look at my shiny fire truck, come work for us and make $70,000 a year. Well, you get there and you realize it's kind of a joke, you know.
Sounds like Job Town in the background. I don't know. All right, man. I appreciate you sharing. Chief Laura. And your driver.
Don't call him Chief. It inflates his head.
Chief's aide. Excuse me. Chief's aide.
It doesn't inflate the head. It inflates that beard. That thing is fucking epic. Jesus Christ, dude. I look like fucking Dora the Explorer.
I got no more fingers left.
When I try to grow a beard, I look like Dora the Explorer, bro. Fuck, that's great. I love that. I'm literally jealous.
No, I appreciate it. I couldn't but think when I saw the title for tonight, managing seasons, of the seasons that I've been through in my career. You know, there's not, as far as I can tell, too many people who are retired on here tonight. And even John, who's no longer serving, is still in a situation where if he had the opportunity to re-engage today, he could, right, John? I mean, you still have the ability technically to do that. What I mean when I say that is, when you get to the end and you're done, it could be a challenging season in your life to be at the end. But it's been good for me, and being able to look back on the differences that I had in my career. You know, a lot of the conversations that we're having tonight are about people that are starting out and what that looks like. You know, there's two ways to really address this issue, and hopefully I'll touch on both a little bit. One is seasons in your own career, and then the other is being someone who manages people in different seasons in their career. So touching on the second one, as a chief in my organization, I didn't have the luxury of having everybody be at the same stage of their career that I was in. So you had new people coming in, you had people that were 5 years in, 10 years in, 15 years in, whatever it may be. It takes a lot of work to meet people where they're at. And the term mentorship was dropped a couple minutes ago. That's perhaps the biggest reason why I started the mentorship podcast that we started, was because I don't see that there's enough mentorship happening in the fire service in general. You know, if people didn't give me the opportunity to grow, to become the person that I eventually became and am still becoming, that would have been a sad thing. Everybody, in the beginning of your career, if you don't have any experience, that's not your fault if you don't have experience. Whether or not you have a desire to be there or not, we can discuss that all day long. But for different people in different places, I got hired with a group of 12, and not all 12 of those people had the same experiences in their first 5 years. They all had 5 years of experience, but they had different experiences throughout that initial part of their career. So allowing people to grow, allowing people to become who it is they're going to become, and provide that mentorship for people is the right thing to do, and it requires a lot of patience. And I'm not was not necessarily known in a very person early on in my career. I don't know what you're laughing about. She's laughing over here. But one of the conversations I remember having was with someone who was senior to me. He got hired a year and a half before me, but he never promoted. So I used to say to him, as I went from firefighter to lieutenant to captain to deputy chief, held staff positions and line positions, that I was afforded a perspective after 20 years that he unfortunately did not have the benefit of having. So it was my job to be able to give him that perspective, or at least expose him to that perspective. If people are not afforded different experiences, I was fortunate to be assigned to training, work as an instructor, was involved in grants, was involved in program writing. All of that goes to different experiences that not everybody either chooses or has the opportunity to be involved in. It's really incumbent upon senior people, experienced people, to be able to bring those people up and give them opportunities to grow. When I look back at my career, we had a conversation recently, and it'd be interesting to hear what people that are sitting in this room think. How long was it before, how many years on the job, knowing where you are now, how many years on the job was it before you really had a clue about what was going on? I'm guessing somewhere about 10 years.
10, 100%. I literally was about to say 10.
Yep. 10 was mine as well.
If you were to ask me at 5 years into my career, I would say I have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until 10 and 15 and 20 years in where you really realize that there's a lot that you don't know. There's experiences that you haven't had. There's interpersonal relationships that have yet to be developed. There's a lot that comes into being a seasoned firefighter, regardless of the rank that you hold. What did you do?
Because your phone's gonna die.
Oh. Are we up on you?
Yeah. There you go.
Had a raptor in the car?
Yes. Turn your phone
It's a good thing I got my technician here. So,
Is that a change of command? Did we just witness that?
exactly. Transfer of command there. So, looking at Michelle, there she is. She's at a different season in her career now than when we first met, just due to personal and professional development opportunities that have come her way, being exposed to different things and allowing those different experiences to build and help to shape who you are. We've all heard the saying, you can have 1 year of experience 20 times over and not learn from it. So there are different seasons that are also affected by what you're experiencing personally. Who is it? Who's got the new baby?
I agree.
Pablo.
I do.
Pablo?
Yes, sir.
You're first?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you're definitely going to be in a different season in your career, having very little to do with the fire service, just by nature of having this momentous change in your personal life, right?
Absolutely. I've taken a step back for the first time in a long, long time. I'm still involved, don't get me wrong, but I'm nowhere near as involved as I was. He's 10 months old, as I was a year and 10 months ago, so through the duration of her pregnancy to what he is now, how old he is now. So yes, you're 100% on correct with that.
Right. So those are important things to understand. And this time and this experience that you're going through is going to help to shape who you eventually become. And then we're done.
You say.
That could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Hopefully it's a good thing. But recognize that, in myself, I got hired when I was 25 years old, single, living in an apartment with 2 other people. It was very different than towards the end of my career. I married into a blended family. Originally, my wife had 2 young children. So all of that goes into you bring that your life with you to work. And I remember hearing from a number of different people to leave work at the firehouse and to leave family at home. And it's not realistic. It's impossible to do. And I think it's conversations like this that allow like-minded people to be able to share ideas. But we hear the conversations about the A players, B players, and C players. There's always going to be A players, B players, and C players, and they all have a role to play. And bringing those people up, giving them opportunities to grow, and showing them what the right things are is our responsibility, because we don't necessarily know what's going on in everybody's life, regardless of how much of a personal bond we develop with people. Much the same way that I look at myself, that not everybody that worked with me knew everything that was going on in my life.
Right.
So it's just, 5 years ago, 2017, I left the fire service. I left New Jersey, left the fire service. I came to Florida. I had no idea what I was doing. 5 years later, I'm working at a fire academy. I'm having an impact on new people coming into the business. And I had a recruit class this week. I had 2 graduations and a new recruit class come in. And the recruit class that came in is a non-certified career class. And I sat down with those people and really had an open and honest conversation with 37 people that are about to come into the business. I feel fortunate that I get to be able to have an impact on those people on their very first day. One of the things that we're implementing at my fire academy now is we're implementing journaling, and just the conversation around journaling was so impactful. I do 2 presentations, one on study skills to help them academically, and we introduced the other on journaling. And just the discussion and the feeling around the topic, I saw the concept of vulnerability in the chat earlier. I would not have been able to have that conversation 15 years ago. It just would have been an impossibility for me. I was in a different season of my life. It wasn't until I went and had some personal and professional experiences that helped to shape me to become more tolerant of people in general, and recognizing that we are in the people business. I heard someone mention that before. We could all want to put the job first, but at the end of the day, it's people that do the job. The risk profile of a building is essentially determined by whether or not there's people in it, right? If there's not, there's no risk, essentially. I'm obviously simplifying that fact. But making sure that we are putting our focus on people. And I'm grateful that I've had people in my life that have allowed me to grow as a person. John and I used to work together up in Sussex County Fire Academy, and I remember I got to a point, for me personally, where I said, I'm a deputy fire chief. I don't feel like the best use of my time is teaching people the difference between a straight roll and a donut roll. I was just in a different place. and it was a difficult time for me because I enjoyed teaching firefighter one. I really liked it, but having to make that decision at that season in my life allowed me to grow into a different role and be able to have an impact on a greater extent that if I didn't allow myself to make that transition, I would not have grown. So being patient with yourself, giving yourself the grace to transition and incorporate what you've learned. Pablo, you had a boy or a girl?
Boy.
So he's going to grow up in 5 years. He's not going to be that baby anymore.
No, absolutely not. And real quick, and just so you can hit on what I'm about to say right now, he was I don't know if you caught the first part of all this. He was born. It was a high risk pregnancy all the way around. Anyway, and I took a solid leave from everything. And Sean will let you. Sean will be the first to tell you. I took a leave from Build Your Culture for a little bit. I've taken a leave from National Rescue Consulting for a little bit. Like trying to get. Took a leave from the training division of the fire department that I work for. And not to throw anybody under the bus and to keep it as vague as possible, I literally had someone tell me to my face, damn, how things have changed. I remember someone that used to be motivated around here. The fuck? Dude, that broke me. That broke me. Talk about like not knowing your people, not investing in your people, not asking, hey man, what's going on? How, like, how's it going? Whatever. Is anything different? Like, talk about not investing in your people. Like, shit, man.
Yeah, it's I felt fortunate when I was uniformed to be able to be in a position where I created an environment where people wanted to come to work. And regardless of where they were, they expressed to me that they wanted to be there. And, I've received a lot of phone calls from people since I've been gone that are having an issue. They need advice and they don't have anybody to talk to. Those phone calls mean the world to me because I know that I built a bond, I built a relationship with those people. Now it's not every day and it's not everyone, but I'm now in a position where when people get done with the fire academy, I make myself available for resume building, resume writing, resume, whatever it is, massaging, interview skills, professional development opportunities, whether it be a degree or whatever else. I had to leave the uniform service to be able to put myself in a position to be where I am. And I feel fortunate in this season of my life to be able to still contribute. And I don't know, I went on a motorcycle trip last week. We did almost 2,100 miles in a week. And I spent a lot of time with my father because he came with us. And I looked at my father, who's 79 years old, and I said, where am I going to be when I get to his season of life? He's still out there riding a motorcycle. And God willing, we all get to reach that age and older with good health. But you never know what life has in store for you. So last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to shut up, is don't take life for granted. Don't take your health for granted because you never know what life has in store for you. So enjoy it while you can enjoy it. Give back and keep making a difference. And I appreciate you guys for doing what you're doing here. And I feel grateful to be a part of it. Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughts as always, Chief. I mean, you got the body of work that not everybody has. So awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Something I want to kind of touch on. I actually had it wrote down before you said it, but the other seasons being the stages of the career, right? The fire service is one of very few professions where the bosses work alongside their subordinates. So if you're at a factory or you're in a cubicle, right? Like normally your peers, the people next to you doing the job, they're all kind of on the same level as you, right? They have the same job responsibilities, and maybe you have a supervisor or manager that kind of comes by and checks on you, oversees your work a little bit. But in the fire service, the boss is pulling line with you. The boss is throwing ladders with you. They're searching with you. And it's such a different dynamic, especially balancing, like you said. I dropped it in the chat there, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you have these, years 1 through 5 guys that got, fire 1, fire 2, and they're at the top of the confidence, without the body of work to be there. And then somewhere in the middle between 5 and 10 years, you've got a new company officer who's feeling that first downturn in their confidence because they're finding all the things they didn't know. And then you go on up to the captain and the battalion chief and the administrative level chiefs that have years on, they've figured all those things out. And then their confidence, battles the confidence of the younger guys. So it's just a whole different dynamic as far as leadership and management goes. And I don't really think that we give that enough thought as far as, what points in people's careers are happening and how they all have to come together when the bell rings to kind of mount an actual coordinated, fire attack or EMS call, whatever it might be. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's something we'll see going forward. People will have to kind of dive into as far as culture and management goes. So we're running kind of long here. We had a bunch of people, so I'm cool with that, but I think we need to start kind of heading towards the end here. So I wanted to end it on this. I think overall we do a lot of, I don't know. I think we do a bad job as a fire service of being very antagonistic and adversarial, right? We talk about all the failures and the problems all the time, but I really still think we don't spend enough time on solutions. So I wanted to wrap this up tonight with talking about what we should do in the highs of our career, because we're all good at voicing what we do in the lows, but I think we all have a responsibility in the highs of our career to be setting the example and to be helping those with lows. And the way I look at it is that you're dropping some money in the bank, right? It's an investment. So hopefully if you're building people up while you're high, when you hit your lows, they'll be there, because usually our ebbs and flows don't go together. We're kind of crossing in these wavelengths all the time. So what can we do for people when they're low? So hopefully maybe they'll take some stock in us when we're low. And so again, I kind of made a list to drive the conversation and, jump on with whatever you guys got. But, obviously first and foremost, help people. I think, Sean, I think you touched on it. I know, Pablo, you touched on it, right? We're real good at tearing everybody down like, oh, you're a piece of shit today, right? Well, I'm going to make it even worse. I'm not going to try to help you get out of it. I'm just going to, we're going to pounce and we're going to keep beating on you like a bully. Train people when they're low. Sometimes the lows in their career are simply a matter of education or a lack of training or lack of experience. That's the easiest thing we can fix right there is training. Sometimes it's advocating for people. Sometimes somebody needs somebody in their corner, because what I've realized in my career is that I'm not always the voice, somebody needs. It's not always me. Maybe they need John to speak for them, right? Maybe the chief will listen to John, but not me. Maybe the company officer will listen to Sean, but not me. So maybe I can advocate for them. Sometimes people just need somebody that can relate to them. They need you to sit there and just say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I've been there. It sucks. I get it, man. This is what I did for what it's worth, or what can I do to help you? Or do you just, you just need to vent? Cool. Like, we're bad at that. We're problem solvers, but sometimes just letting some people talk is what they need. And then ultimately just listening. And I mean, really listening, sitting down, even go as far as taking some notes. Like, hey, I don't want to make this weird, but I want to write down what you're going through so I can kind of stew on it. Maybe next day we can come back and get together. Because if you just dump it on me for 10 minutes, I'm not going to remember what you said. And that's just being honest with somebody and show them that you're engaged. So again, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to kick it over to you guys. But I think maybe if we focus more on the highs, we'd have less lows.
Pablo, you want to go?
Just real quick on that transparency. When you're really high, be transparent as fuck. What that means to me is like right now I'm high in the sense that I'm high on life, man. I'm blessed from every which way possible. Is that my fuck count? Hey, wait a minute. You guys
I made it up. I stopped counting. So
we're counting all your fucks. You're way past 13, so just keep going.
You've met your quota.
Listen, I am high. I'm high on life right now, man. Everything is going great, and I try to be as transparent as possible. When I'm transparent, I believe it helps other people. In other words, like I'm transparent, whether it be on addiction recovery. I'm transparent on the new birth of my child. I'm transparent with how I feel about the job, whether I'm high, whether I'm low on it. So I'm transparent. The more transparent I am, this is what happened to me. This is how I fixed it. This is how maybe it'll help you. The more transparent you are, the more you can help other people. And as far as like just being at the firehouse, I'm once again, from as far as the standpoint of my career is concerned, I never, ever would imagine that I was a shy kid. I hated talking to people. I hated talking in front of an audience. I never liked it. And all of a sudden, at some point in my career, around the 8, 9, 10-year mark, what we were talking about, I started getting very comfortable around people because I started understanding the job more. And it wasn't that I was just regurgitating information that I would just hear from someone in a fire conference. It was like literally me seeking out busy battalion after busy battalion after busy firehouse, and seeking out these busy firehouses and going to fire conferences and all that shit started coming together. And I started really understanding the job. When I started really understanding the job, I was very comfortable in regurgitating the information. So when I got to the point right in my career right now, sorry to go through my asshole to get to my elbow, but I got to the point right now in my career in which I'm very comfortable in teaching and being in front of a crowd and regurgitating certain skills and information, right? At the firehouse, unless I'm actually asked to do it personally, I actually try not to. What that means is so like, for example, if we're doing ladders for the day, or if we're doing some rope skills or something along those lines, I try to let one of the junior members to me teach it for the day. So I let a junior member teach a junior member. I try not to always just be the guy that says, I got it. No. I do not need to shine my fucking light any brighter. My light's fine. I don't need it to, maybe I could get a new light bulb. I don't know, but I don't need it to shine any brighter. I want other light bulbs around my street to shine because I want my entire fucking street to shine, you know? Like, there's no sense in just having the entire street dark as shit and then my little corner is just bright. I don't care about that. I want to be able to feel safe in the entire street. Random ass analogy, but you know what I mean. So I in the firehouse, unless the teaching from that junior man to that junior man is being given in just a wrong way, in which, like, okay, you're giving bad information, and then I'll address it kind of on the side. I'll never embarrass that guy or that girl, but I actually try not to. So transparency. As far as like my personal life, you know, transparency maybe helps other people, and then at the firehouse, as far as my teaching, I try not to teach. I let other people do it.
Pablo, I want to jump on that. You're absolutely right. Letting, like, for retention purposes and learning. Michael Orr is going to know this better than I do. They say, like, if you read about it, you retain 10%. You read, write about it, it's like 25 to 35. Read, write, do, and you jump to 50, about 50%. Read, write, do, then teach. It's almost 75%. Again, my numbers are going to be slightly off. I know Mike's probably going to know that better than I do, but that's huge by letting the junior guy teach the skill, as long as they're teaching it right. And again, with skills, it's important. Again, Mark will probably know that too, Davidson. Teaching skills, if we learn it right the first time, we're going to do it right. When you learn it wrong the first time, relearning it, it's next to impossible to relearn that. And when shit goes sideways, we fall back to our earliest training. Right. That happens all the time. Pablo, you're spot on with what you were saying, and I completely agree with you.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate that. It means a lot.
You got Duffy.
I don't really have much different than what Pablo's saying is, you know, you don't always have to be the go-to person. You know, sometimes there's a lot to be said about letting somebody else step into that role, and that is the teachable moment, right? Yeah. Because for me, I wasn't always like, I didn't come into the fire service and do what I do today, right? Those are things that happen because people gave me opportunity, and I think that's what we need to be doing when we're in our highs, right? Is sharing that with people and letting them blossom into the firefighter that they're supposed to be, maybe the instructor they're supposed to be, whatever it is, and just guide them. You know, one of the things that I respect is, you know, and going along with Pablo, transparency. I started a new fire department this year, and it's been years in the making. It's always been a department I wanted to work for, and it just happened to be right timing, right? But what happened up until that point? I had years of teaching at fire conferences, teaching at FDIC, Firehouse Expo, like doing these things, doing podcasts, writing articles, all of these things that are attached to me. So coming into that fire department, what do you think happened? right? Oh, this is the guy. This guy that knows everything. And I had to tell people very quickly, like, look, I know what I know. That's it. I'm no better than you. I'm a fireman. Like, I'm going to mess up. I've got a lot to learn. The things that I've done outside of here are for me. And I wanted to do those because I felt it was important to pass that on. And then you shut the fuck up. You just sit there and you listen to what they have to give you, right? And it was like the other day at training, my captain goes, "Hey man, we're doing vertical ventilation training today. You know a thing or two about this?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "All right, I'm gonna let you lead it." It was very uncomfortable for me because I'm looking at people that have 15, 20 plus years on the job, and I've got to teach them how to do this thing. But the moral of that story is he could have easily done it himself. He's not dumb. He knows how to do those things. He's got more time on the job than I do. But he understood, hey, in order to be a functional member of this department and gain respect and do all these things, I'm going to let you shine where you shine, right? And we have to do that to the people below us. And no better time to do that than when things are going phenomenal, right? That's a Pablo word, by the way. When things are going, yeah, you're welcome, buddy. When things are going really well for us and we're like on top of that mountain and we're at the high point, that is the best time because that's what people are going to remember out of a conversation. Caveat to that is they're also going to remember when you're just being a total arrogant prick and you're just an asshole. You're showing up to work, you're angry, you're pissed off at the world. So find that balance and, just have those conversations. There's a guy on my crew the other day who's on the training committee who's very frustrated. And I listened to him talk and I said, "Hey man, you're not alone, right? But the one thing you can do is say your piece. Ultimately, the people are going to want what they want. Let them have it. And then when things don't go the way they expected, then you can come in and say, hey, that's fine. But I didn't want to be the only one having a say. I wanted you guys to feel like your opinions mattered too. And sometimes you just need to figure that out for yourself." So end of the long rant is just share what you know. Nothing more, nothing less. Share your experiences, share your knowledge, like pass that stuff on because we all need that from people around us.
Yeah, man.
Hey, Mark, if I could chime in.
Oh, absolutely.
The cool thing about this, first of all, if we had Yinglings sitting around the fireplace, that we end up in the same place. That's the cool part about getting a group of people together is what the Dunning-Kruger curve, Chief Alora, everybody is Pablo, everybody's coming to that same place where if we're tying this back into the seasons, we've experienced that. We've had the good fortune to have gone through those seasons to see what that looks like, to get past that 10-year mark where it's starting all to gel. The other thing about Dunning-Kruger is that Mount Stupid, that spike that they described of what you believe compared to what you actually know. And that Mount, we've climbed Mount Stupid. My top 10 list of fuck ups, epic. But getting to that point of understanding, I think our role here, because everybody's in a leadership role one way or the other, is passing that on, giving that grace to those people who are still climbing that mountain and putting them in a position to say, hey, I have confidence in you. You go ahead and teach this. You step up. I don't need to be the one in front. I don't need to prove anything. I want you to prove what you have because you're the next one up. I'm only here for a short period. It's time to hand this off. And that creates that, especially for somebody who's coming out of a dark season, if you will, that creates that spring, that creates that sunshine that helps build them out of those moments of despair. And that's what I think our role is. And this discussion is so cool because it gets you to that point of helps get us to that point of understanding that we have to pass it on. That's really what our role is.
Yeah, I think they call it the peak of Mount Stupid is what they call it in the Dunning-Kruger effect, that initial thing. But yeah, I think to add on to what Sean said too, I think that's kind of the season thing, right? And to me, as I mature and I gain some knowledge and I start kind of being enlightened up that curve, is that I think when you get to that point where you realize it's time to pass it on to the next guy and it's time to let somebody else kind of take the ropes, that's also a good indicator that you're probably ready to take the next step in your career promotion wise, because you're not attached to that position anymore. You've realized that while I may not know everything, I know enough about this now to start training somebody to replace me. And maybe that's how you know it's time to move on to the next level of leadership and influence within your organization. And I think a lot of people ask that question. I know it doesn't really tie directly into the seasons, but I've heard that before. How do you know it's time to promote? Well, that's how. When you get to that point where you don't feel insecure anymore, you're secure enough in your abilities and your role and your position, and you're ready to tackle the next thing. I would also add too, season wise, part of these seasons is knowing when it's time to kind of just take the step back altogether. You start getting into that 20, 25, 30 year mark. At some point, you got to hang it up, right? And that's the hardest part, I think, to focus on. John, go ahead, man. You speak that better than I can.
Knowing when to ride off into the sunset. It's definitely an interesting point, and it was.
How long do you have on? I'm sorry. I just want to know.
I did 22 years in my department, and then I had years that are prior, so I carried over. And for me, it was the right time. Things were falling into place, and looking at the future of certain things and things that I can control and things that I can't, and trying to figure out that dynamic was extremely important. And then certain things such as going to conferences and looking towards what I'm going to invest in my future was a huge part of knowing when to ride off into the sunset. I'm by no means done with the fire service. I am just retiring from my current department.
Which is still a season, man. Retirement is a season. So we've run long, man. We're hitting on 2 hours. So I just want to thank everybody that got on tonight. We had a good crowd tonight. We had some awesome interaction with the viewers. I hope if we can summarize it into anything, it's that, if you're going through ups and downs in your career, it's not weird. It's perfectly normal. And if you're fortunate enough to start going through those early on, learning how to manage them will make your career that much more fulfilling and lengthy. If you're kind of getting towards the end of your career, maybe you've been in a rut, just know it's normal, but hopefully we gave you some tools to kind of recognize that maybe whatever's bothering you isn't as bad as you think it is. And if it is, maybe we've given you some tools to kind of get out of it. And if you're at that high point in your career, just understanding how critical it is to be able to help other people who are not kind of in that same position you are. I will say that I've already come up with the topic. I'm going to make one of those fire ground decisions in episode 18. I think we're going to go with managing expectations, the whole fire first EMS thing, and then just kind of talking about how we deal with our crews and our replacements. I think that's going to be a great topic to go down next time. So we'll get you a date here for July, probably in the next couple of weeks, but I feel like that'll be a good conversation. I'm not really, I don't really have anything to promote this month other than hopefully I'll be at the beach in 2 weeks and taking a much needed vacation. You guys got anything to promote?
No, not on my end.
No, I'm pretty good. I'll be down at Water on Fire helping out, doing logistics work at CFT, the Water on Fire down in Pensacola in August, and hopefully see you guys out at Firehouse in the end of September, October.
I'll link up with Sean at some point and go hunting. That's about it.
That's right. That's right. That's something we've been trying to do for years, my man.
Yeah.
I'm actually slowing down for a short time, which is
glad
crazy.
This is recorded. I'm going to use it against you in about 3 weeks.
I'm going to use it against you.
You use it against me.
I get to see Sean next weekend, though.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, don't he's slowing down.
Yeah. 3 things a month instead of 5 fire conferences in 1 month, right?
Yeah, you're slowing
anyhow,
down and Squinch didn't kiss Wendy Peppercorn.
Oh, wait till you see my driver's license from Michigan. It's great. It's awesome. Anyhow, I'll be at Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the lake next month, and then Firehouse Expo, and I have the whole month of August to do absolutely nothing but hang out and be a normal member of society for a little bit. So I'm looking forward to that.
Hey, fuck it, dude. I might. You know what? I might make a surprise trip to Missouri.
Oh gosh. Well, come on, man. You're always welcome.
I'll believe it when August is over and I can talk to your wife and actually see if you stayed in Michigan or if you left.
Yeah. Make sure you talk to your kids while you're at it, will you?
Yeah, if you'd send them down to see me once in a while, I'd send that check. But
Nobody knows that inside joke, which makes this.
yeah, they all do now. It's creepy. It's okay. Until
John's
you
throwing
walk
his
the
hands
mean
up.
streets of Columbus after dark, you won't understand.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How's your wife and my kids? How hard is that to understand?
Oh, I don't know. That was like right around the time that I was getting hit on by some dude on the corner. It was awesome. That was an interesting night. So
all I can tell you is if you buy Sean kid appetizers for dinner, they become yours. That's literally the extent of the joke. So. All right, I'm going to end this recording before we divulge all of our horrible secrets nobody needs to know about us. But again, I thank everybody for jumping on. Mark Davison, great to talk to you, brother. We need to make this regular. Chief Alora, thank you as always for your expertise and your experience. We appreciate it. Pablo, great to see you, bro. I'm glad everything's going great with your kid. To everybody else that joined us, again, come back in July. We're going to talk about some managing expectations. If this is your first episode with us, they should all be on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. So come join us again. Everybody have a good night.
Appreciate you.